David scans the paper he is about to sign. A silver ballpoint pen in his hand hovers over the signature line. The paper is crisp, fine and heavy, all at the same time. At the top of the page, the words "Decree of Dissolution" are spelled out in classic calligraphy. It is strangely beautiful, he notes, as the irony of the moment engulfs him. The room is too quiet. You can hear the hum of the HVAC and the distant click of a keyboard. David looks at the last line, and then he looks at the number in the paragraph above it. The number is $87,000, 22 years of early shifts and 22 years of opting into the 401k. It was the safety net. It was the someday money. He presses the pen down, and the ink bleeds into the paper. Now the number is $43,500. And just like that, half of it is gone. David is 47 years old, and he is standing in a parking lot with the sun hitting the asphalt. He is squinting at a manila folder in his hands. Most people would look at this situation and see a failed marriage. David sees something else. He sees a broken equation. At 47, you are supposed to be accelerating toward retirement. You are supposed to have $150,000 or maybe $200,000 tucked away. But instead, David has a 2011 Honda Accord and a suitcase, and a retirement account that just suffered a 50% penalty that the world calls reality. And if you have ever looked at a bank balance and realized you are starting over at an age when you should be finishing, then you know exactly what David is feeling right now. He looks at his phone, and there is one notification waiting. A text from his brother. "Take the cash, Dave. Pay off the car and start fresh." It sounds like a lifeline, but in reality, it is a trap. This is Marcus Jones, the finance detective. I came across this case through a forensic audit of a retirement portfolio that should not have existed. On paper, David was just another statistic, a late career divorcee with high liability and a depleted asset base. The system expects people like David to either disappear into debt or work until they are 80 years old. But David did not follow that script. He understood a concept that most people ignore until it is way too late. I call it the 47-year pivot. This is case file 616, and I am going to show you how he solved the math of a second chance. David's new headquarters is a 700-square-foot apartment that smells like fresh paint and loneliness. He is sitting on a plastic crate because the furniture has not arrived yet. He pulls out a yellow legal pad, and this is where the detective work begins. He was making $64,000 a year as a warehouse supervisor. His combined savings with his ex-wife was $87,000. He was contributing 6% to his 401k in the set it and forget it move. He had the comfort of two incomes covering one mortgage. Now his individual savings are $43,500. He paid $8,200 in legal fees straight out of his emergency fund. His remaining cash is only about $1,400, and his clock is ticking. He has 18 years left until he turns 65. If he does nothing and keeps contributing his 6%, at an 8% return, he hits 65 with roughly $240,000. That might sound okay at first, but factor in inflation and healthcare over 18 years. That is not a retirement fund. That is a catastrophe waiting to happen. His brother Rick calls him on the phone. Rick says, "Dave, listen, you are stressed out right now. Take $15,000 out of the 401k. You have got the hardship excuse with the divorce. Buy yourself some decent furniture and pay off the $5,000 left on the Accord. Just breathe for a second." David looks at the Accord through the window and notices it needs tires and the AC is humming. This is the consumption trap. Rick is offering him a standard of living, comfort, and a fresh start that would feel really good today. But David picks up his pen and runs the withdrawal penalty math. He says to Rick, "If I take $15,000 out, the IRS takes 10% for the penalty because I am under 59 and a half. Then they take my income tax rate, another 22 to 25%. If I withdraw $15,000, I end up paying $5,250 in taxes and penalties. That leaves only $9,750 in his hand. I lose $5,000 just to touch my own money. But it is actually worse than that. If I leave that $15,000 alone for 18 years at 8%, it grows to $62,000. There is silence on the other end of the line. David says, "Rick, You are telling me to buy $9,700 worth of breathing room by lighting $62,000 of my future on fire. I cannot afford that breath. If you have ever had someone give you well-meaning financial advice that felt wrong in your gut, drop a comment below and tell me how you handled the pressure to spend money you knew you should save. David realizes that he is not just behind where he should be. He is in a race against time. He calculates his survival clock. With only $1,400 in the bank, he would last exactly 17 days if he lost his job tomorrow. He needs to re-engineer his entire cash flow from the ground up. He looks at his take-home pay of $3,563 a month. He creates what he calls the $17 filter. Every purchase filtered through one question. Does this buy me certainty, or does it just buy me a moment of comfort? His biggest leak is not the big expenses everyone worries about. It is the ghost of the standard of living. The $75 phone plan and the $320 grocery bill with name brand everything. He decides on a radical shift he calls the standard of certainty. His first move is the lockdown. He bumps his 401k contribution from 6% all the way up to 15%. His take-home goes from $5,333 down to $3,563. His second move is the lean budget. His rent is $950. The car payment is $285. His $420 in child support is non-negotiable. That leaves him with about $1,908 for everything else. Most people would look at that number and see fun money, a way to ease some of the stress over the years. David looks at it, and he sees a suit of armor. Year one was what he called the social death. This is the part that all the hustle videos skip over. It is the grind. It is the boredom. This is where you build the discipline muscles. David's friends invite him to a steakhouse. He tells them he cannot make it because he is working. But he was not really working. He was sitting in his apartment eating chicken fajitas on a George Foreman grill. Sitting on that same plastic crate. He feels the doubt creeping in. He is 48 years old now. He should be at the peak of his life, but instead he is counting out generic brand cereal to stay on budget. But the math is working even if it does not feel like it. Every single month, $1,120 is hitting his retirement account from his contribution and the company match. Every single month, his emergency fund grows by $400. At the end of year one, his balance is $57,800. The bleeding has stopped and the wound is starting to close. The grind is lonely. If you are building in silence right now, you are not alone. In year 2, month 14, David walks into the bank and signs a piece of paper. The 2011 Honda Accord with 130,000 miles and fading paint is officially his. The $285 monthly payment is finished, but he does not upgrade his life. He takes that $285 and invests it straight into his armor, his savings account. He meets a woman named Sarah at a work function. She is warm and easy to talk to. For the first time in 18 months, David does not feel like a man who is starting over. He feels like a man who is building. He suggests a farmer's market on a Saturday morning. It costs nothing, and it tells him everything he needs to know about her. She shows up in jeans and sneakers and brings him a coffee she picked up on the way. They walk for 2 hours, and she never once mentions a restaurant or a movie or anything that costs money. On the way back to the parking lot, she says she had a really good time. David looks at his filter, and he feels something he has not felt in 18 months. He feels like the plan is working on every level. At the end of year 2, his balance is $74,100. In year 3, something shifted. When you stop worrying about your standard of living, you start performing better at everything else. David is not stressed about his car breaking down anymore because he has a $12,000 emergency fund. He is focused at work. He spots an inefficiency in the loading dock rotation and writes a 3-page proposal. He gets promoted to operations manager. His salary jumps from $64,000 to $72,000. This is the moment where most people fail because of what he calls lifestyle creep. An $8,000 raise feels like permission to buy a new truck or move to a better apartment. But David keeps his 15% contribution, which now scales up to $900 a month with a $360 match. He does move to a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,150 a month because his kids need the space when they visit. He is 50 years old now. At age 47, David had $87,000, combined, fragile, and just one signature away from disaster. Now at age 50, he has $94,600 in his 401k and $12,400 in liquid cash. He has a paid-off car and a career trajectory that is actually moving upward. In 3 years of discipline, David did not just get back to where he was before the divorce. He surpassed it, and he did it alone. If David had listened to Rick and taken that $15,000 out at 47, even with his new 15% contribution rate, he would hit age 65 with about $456,000. But by leaving that money alone and doing the 3-year grind, his projected balance at 65 is $548,000. That 3-year grind with the chicken fajitas and the farmer's market dates and the 2011 Honda Accord was worth $92,000 in future cash. David did not work harder than anyone else. He just refused to let his math be dictated by his emotions. The first reason it worked was the withdrawal refusal. Taxes and penalties are essentially a double tax on your future self. Most people think they need a massive windfall to catch up. David used a massive change in habit instead. The third reason was the 3-year buffer. He gave himself a deadline and told himself it was not forever. It took just 3 years to stabilize the ship and get things back on course. But let me be real about the risks. If David's health had failed during those 3 years, the lean budget would have been an absolute nightmare. If the market had crashed 40% in year 1, his morale might have broken completely. There were no guarantees in any of this. But what was the alternative? Doing nothing was a 100% chance of failure, and David knew that better than anyone. David's retirement was cut in half when he was 47 years old. He is 50 now, and he is not rich yet, but he is certain about his future. The divorce took his money, but it could not take his discipline. You now have the file, and it is time to run your own numbers. Here is your assignment for this week. Calculate your own survival clock. First, add up all your liquid cash. Second, divide that number by your monthly expenses. Third, ask yourself how many days you would have if your income stopped today. If that number scares you, do not panic. Just engineer a recovery plan. And if you know someone who is staring at a starting over moment right now, someone who thinks it is too late, send them this. Remember this, the math never lies. What is your biggest financial obstacle right now? Is it a standard of living trap that you cannot seem to escape? Is it a Rick in your ear telling you to spend money you should be saving? Drop a comment below because I read every single one. I am Marcus Jones, the Finance Detective. This has been Case File 616. If this case changed the way you think about wealth, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The more people in the room, the stronger the strategy. Run the numbers. Follow the money trail. We pursue financial literacy one clue at a time.